Hello, everybody. Welcome to Series 4 on the Executive Benefits Simplified series with Benefit RFP. My name is Bob Nienaber. I'm one of the founders of the company, and then I'm joined today with David.cox, one of our senior executive sales and solution providers. Today, we're going to talk about probably the most complex piece of executive benefits, and I will tell you that in the next 20-25 minutes, as we always promise with our Simplified series, you will be experts on how to get the most out of your plan and really get the understanding. And if not, you can watch this video many, many times until the light goes off and you'll be in good shape. One of the things that you want to really think about when you're building a plan is what the plan is for, how it's going to be impactful for the audience that you're trying to recruit, retain, reward. What are they trying to achieve? Why do you need a plan? Is a qualified plan and the limitations around that holding you back from offering true benefits out to your senior executives, further causing people to either not take a job with you or to leave? Is a plan that you've had in the company not transparent? We see a lot of handshake deals that still exist, even though they're not supposed to. We see a lot of phantom plans where companies believe when they're sold that these are the most efficient way to build a plan when a participant, in fact, looks at them as not a real plan at all, which limits, really the power that a plan can provide your company. And also, companies choose to go down those routes because they feel that funding a plan is too expensive or really cost prohibitive. And a couple of things that I want you to understand if you're hearing us for the first time on this conversation. When you build a plan properly, a plan should be funded so that a participant realizes that the plan is real, that there's really going to be a payment on the promise that's out there. And to fund a plan, actually it takes less cash flow to fund a plan than it does to simply pay the executives out a bonus or whatever it may be and have them cash it and the company get the deduction today. Also, when you fund a plan properly, there's a lot of different funding opportunities. You can fund it with cash into the future. You can fund it with taxable investments like stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. Or you can fund it with corporate-owned life insurance, or the commonly seen acronym is COLI, and take advantage of some of the tax strategies. So there's positives about them all. There's negatives about them all. So we'll talk about that real quick. The other thing that is important to note, that when you build a plan properly, and I'm going to say this very deliberately, when you build a plan properly, it will produce a profit for the company. And that simply means that those profits that are in the plan can be returned back to the plan to improve the benefits that are being given to your executives so that you can improve their plan. You can take the profits in total and improve the executive plan, or if you have a 401k and you want to improve the vesting or matching on that plan, you can use those dollars, or you can use it for any company needs that you have, or you can return it to the shareholders. Either which way, those plan values will come back because of some tremendous tax advantages that exist out in the marketplace. So, first thing that we talk about, when you build a promise and you allow participants to either pick and choose how much they want to defer into a plan, or a company defines the benefit, either which way, that is your liability. That's the amount that is owed to your executive team. And companies will track this as a total account, but they also track it down to the individual so that we can see and the participants can see exactly what's owed to them at any point in time. Now, when it comes to getting the cash flow necessary to fund a program, and the reason that you want to fund a program versus just leaving it a naked liability is naked liabilities because of participants' eligibility and picking investments will continue to grow. So if participants are deferring money and the plan is not being funded, then that liability will continue to grow and there will not be a supporting asset. And the cash necessary to pay these people out in the future will be whatever they deferred plus the investment growth, which is generally 2 to 3 times what they put into it over their working careers. And the company will have to make up not only what was deferred, but all the growth. If they had funded it, they could use the asset, because funding it now means you have an asset that you're setting aside to pay these people out down the road. If they fund it with investments that mirror the participant accounts, then the assets and liabilities will true up in a perfect world. Unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. We have the IRS, and taxes are going to be involved. And what's going to happen is those participant accounts will grow free of taxes because they're notional accounts. There's no real money in there. But the asset that's mirroring that future payout is growing as well, and they have to pay taxes on the gains. And so anytime you see a plan that has long-term funding needs, you will always never see it using stocks, bonds, or mutual funds, because if you have a taxable asset, it is mathematically impossible for the asset to keep up with the liability. So companies will use corporate-owned life insurance. In corporate-owned life insurance, again, the COLI acronym is very common out there, means that if the participants as a group defer $1 million, and we put the $1 million into that COLI account, the COLI account is going to mirror the liability. Whatever investments that the participants choose will be part of investments that COLI are also going to be invested in. Big difference, though, is yes, you're saving millions of dollars over time from not having to pay taxes on the growth. However, you still have to pay the cost of insurance and reflective costs that are involved with that. Most of these plans involved riders that allow that asset to equal or even be larger than the liability from day one. And then over time, because you're deferring the payout of these plan benefits, that taxable or that asset that you're using in the COLI account continues to grow, but also the carry forward deduction. So if they put in $1 million a year over 10 years, participants who put away $10 million, assuming the account value's doubled at least once, well, $20 million, companies in the 40% tax bracket, even though the company missed out on 40% of those current deductibility values today, they get to take the value of that carry forward deduction into the future. So when the money went from 10 million of deferrals and we missed 4 million of deductions from the company, and it grew to 20 million of distribution, now the company has $8 million of true asset on top of or in combination with that COLI product, which in most cases, almost all cases, the total asset is going to be worth millions more than the liability. And therefore, that's company profit. That's money that can be taken out, and it doesn't even have to be taken out at the time of distribution. Since it's a balance sheet item, companies can invade those dollars long before the distributions take place. But you're simply going to get an actuarial report that shows when the asset is ahead of the liability and how much companies can take out at any point in time. This is particularly important if you have a pass-through company. Most pass-through entities do not believe that they can do a non-qualified plan. And that is completely wrong as long as you're talking about non-owners or minority shareholders. If you're talking about majority shareholders, yes, there are other options for you, and I'll talk about that in a second. However, for non-owners and for minority shareholders, a non-qualified plan works perfectly fine. There's no disadvantage for being in the plan. The company, though, since it's a pass-through, that majority shareholder probably in the 50% tax bracket. And when the participants are putting away $1 million into the plan, even though that owner is going to receive that current deduction into the future at a much higher rate, they're going to miss it or feel that as a cash flow hit today. So they're not going to be happy. And so in those cases, there's a thing called net funding, where you give that owner the net amount of that deduction today, and you true it up at the time of distribution. Comes out exactly the same. Nothing changes. It just, the shareholder now no longer is really hurt because of a current missed deduction, and they're no longer feeling the bite of that missed revenue option. Now, I said a minute ago, it doesn't make sense for an owner, a majority owner, to be in one of these plans. But what does make sense is when a plan yields a profit, we take all the profits from that plan and we put it into a product that mirrors the same COLI that's in the plan, and it's simply called a capital maximization plan. It's outside of the deferred comp plan, which enables the owners and shareholders that have high values of the company to have these dollars go into the plan, and they can take it out into the future as a dividend, or they can utilize the dollars still inside the company, still working in a potentially tax-free world, depending on how that COLI product is set up in the capital maximization world. But by doing it this way, you achieve the ability to recruit, retain, reward your top people, however you want to design the structure. And you also enable both shareholders that have majority levels and non-shareholders to have the same type of advantage in these plans and have the same flexibility. But it all comes down to proper plan management and proper plan administration to make sure these plans are put together profitably. At the end of the day, whether you're a traditional C corporation or if you're a pass-through and you have these plans for yourself or for your people, it will reduce the cash flow necessary to fund top hat people. It will dramatically create a profit for the company that is sponsoring it, for their shareholders, for the owners, for the company, do whatever they want with those values. So it's huge benefit for all parties involved.
Yeah, and I think, one thing too, that as you're explaining this, I mean, it is complex, obviously, but it makes sense. One thing that, typically when people hear insurance, life insurance, there's sort of maybe a negative connotation or a certain belief people have about life insurance. And in the COLI world, corporate-owned life insurance, these are different than the retail life insurance products that you or I might go out and buy, for ourselves, right? So these are institutional type products that are built to support this exact kind of corporate funding. And so I just wanted to point that out. I thought there was some value there.
No, it's huge. It's huge, Dave. One of the things that's interesting with these, so whenever we do a financial model, and for any companies that we work with, we show them, what their benefit liability looks like, and we show them what the cash flow related to it looks like, whether you're funding it with company cash, not funding it, or funding it with investments or mutual funds, so that customers can see that before they do anything. We should also show the asset. But one of the things that's interesting that people find amazing is when I use the term that if you're funded with taxable products, plan will never be profitable. It can't be. It's just mathematically impossible because of taxes. And then they look at the insurance surrender values and they're like, how can this be more than what's owed? And that's one of the first things that's amazing. Remember, some form of corporate-owned life insurance has existed for over 100 years. It's not new. It's obviously much more competitive today. It's considered a foundational product for companies. It produces tremendous values for these plans. But the other thing that we didn't talk about is if I'm putting away $1 million in a plan, I probably have $15 million of key person life insurance that's simply being generated. And this is really discounted group term that's sitting on these plans that wraps the product to meet IRS code for tax efficiencies. And one of the things that's nice about it is if a company's paying, retail costs for a key person insurance on 10 people, 20 people, and they're in the plan, they can eliminate those costs simply by having this attachment onto the COLI. The other thing that happens is the COLI values grow. So as your participants get older, death benefits get older, and that all comes back to the company tax-free as well. And so there's some huge benefits. We don't look at that because we don't know when people are going to die, so we can't use it as a true accounting number, but we can certainly put it on the sidebar and say if we were in mutual funds, we'd lose all this money in taxes. Instead of losing that money in taxes, we're realigning those dollars that would go straight to taxes to paying for the internal costs on these plans and coming out with a huge capital improvement with that insurance somewhere down the road, plus all the values that are being shown and demonstrated today by the improved asset. So there's just a huge amount of reasons why companies will utilize the features inside of corporate and life insurance.
Yeah, and in our previous video, we talked about the cost of replacing some of these folks that typically take part in these plans, and it's 2 to 6 times salary. If somebody were to pass away while employed, well, with that key person, the company is the owner of the policy. They're paying the premiums. They're the beneficiaries. So the company in those cases is receiving that death benefit tax free, and that money can be used by them to pay out the liabilities to that executive, just on the values in the plan. And then they can also use that money to cover the cost of finding that replacement. And those costs are varied, right? I mean, it's not just direct cost of placing ads and paying somebody to interview candidates and all this, but there's just a tremendous loss when you have somebody who leaves in that way, and you've got the funds to maybe bring in a part-time, an interim type solution, and all those sorts of things that can be used, or the death benefit can be used to cover all that. So
think about the human conversation or human element on this as well, David. I work with a lot of CHROs and HR directors that come in and they have senior executives, and a lot of times these folks, their bodies aren't that good. They've put their bodies through hell with all the years of being a corporate executive, and they either have insurance problems or might be completely uninsurable if it were not for the guaranteed issue that you can receive off of getting large groups involved in these plans. And that coverage, let's say I'm a CEO and I can't get insurance and I have some kind of very expensive clause that's going to mess up my insurance or make me uninsurable, the company could actually endorse the full amount of that death benefit over to the participant upon their death. And so that's an added benefit where that person, if you're having trouble getting in the door, maybe retaining them, they're going to think twice because that's a benefit that maybe they can't get anywhere else. And so there's a lot of perks that come out of the conversations associated with that.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit, the full funding versus net funding. When you look at it on paper, it's like comparing the Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. You go to tax facts, you're going to find at the end of the day, it's the exact same amount. So if you take the values out of the upfront funding on these plans in the early years and you do net funding and you true it up at the end, it's really going to come out the same as if you fully funded it up front. The only thing that you really get that's important, and we even tell companies that are pass-through to fully fund it till the first few years just to develop a stream of income. But at the end of the day, it's very powerful. So if you have a discussion that you need a plan and you're a pass-through or you're a traditional C Corp company, it's just a matter of going through and looking at the numbers and seeing where it best suits you. Even companies that are C corporations, we see net funding come out of them all the time because when an asset gets ahead of the liability, we see companies not fund it for the year while still placing the liability, which is great. And, imagine a company where you're doing $1 million or $2 million a year of deferrals, and we're talking to you about your asset to liability, and your assets, up by 120%. We're going to tell you, hey, go ahead and elect the participant account liabilities, add that to their values, but don't fund it for the year. Keep that $1 or $2 million out for other company needs because you don't need it because of tax effect and because of the benefits that tax effect gives to these plans. It literally saves companies millions of dollars all the time. Yeah. And, when people don't utilize these plans because they're making the mistake or they've heard somebody that said, well, I had an insurance product and it was awful. And I will tell you right now, COLI, even though COLI as a corporate-owned life insurance program, yeah, it's a great product, but there are some COLI providers out there that are absolutely the most expensive providers of product, period. And as and I believe we're the only company I can think of where the fiduciary that we have with all the companies is on the same side of the participants, because we're not owned by any insurance company, admin firms, investment firms, in that nature. And so we work with everybody and show them side by side. Therefore, a company, when they look at a financial statement or a funding statement with us, and this shows up in the audits that we do all the time, they will not just have an okay funding arrangement. They'll have the best one. And the difference between having a good one and the best one, just over a 10-year period, is multi-millions of dollars for a company, believe it or not, simply because one product is better and fits their demographics and their census much better than a poor yield and COLI product. And so having an audit done on your plan, if you already have funding, it's imperative, and it's free, and it takes usually 24 hours to get the results back, and then you do whatever you want to do as a customer. You make whatever decisions you want. We don't sell product. We sell plans. We consult with plans. How you choose to fund is going to be based on what works best for you, and you'll see all the information utilized in our technologies. We're a fintech leading company, one of the top financial technology companies being followed in the Silicon Valley because of our proprietary technology with our diagnostics, the plan builders, the funding tools, the concierge pieces that really turn a plan into a total rewards plan by giving all participants access to their individual accounts so that they can see what's the best way to get the most use out of the plan. And also when they retire or they have a financial goal, what's the best way to get the money out in the most tax-efficient manner. And we can pay everything in these concierge. We put their 401ks in there, any other investments they have, any real estate, any money that they gathered in their lifetime from Aunt Tilly. All this goes in there. So they're all completely knowledgeable about what's the best way, what tax rules to use, what's the best way to get their money out. And when you prepare a participant like that, when they're one of your senior execs, that's the company saying, we are giving you everything in a financial world to make your retirement 100% not hopeful, but real. And make sure you have the right money so that during your go-go years, your slow-go years, and your no-go years in retirement, and retirements are, taking 30 years these days. It's about the same time as your full working years. You got to get it right. And so, yep. We bring all that together with customers when they're doing that, because these financial discussions are absolutely confusing sometimes. But with that, we said you would be an expert in the next 20, 25 minutes. I hope this helps you a lot. If not, call David with all your hard questions, and we'll help you guys out anytime.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you all.